Hey, I'll jump in. The governor was in earlier and repeating a lot of things you've already heard. He essentially said he thinks you're reckless. He thinks that a lot of the things that you're saying aren't true, not necessarily because you're lying, but because you're not well informed on things like his education plan, his regulatory reform, that kind of thing. How do you respond to that? Have you gone through
you know what? I'm not really interested in responding. I'll just tell you what is going on and what I would like to do. First of all, we came across a Federal Reserve study that he actually may have referred to where it says we're coming out of this and growing faster than everybody else. 41 other states have fared better than we have since he's been governor. Now there's an argument that, well, woe is us because everything's against us and it's too hard for us to be able to fix things and we have to wait for the sun to come up tomorrow. Well, what we find is 41 other states have outperformed us through this period. Number two, we have a real problem, particularly in a lot of your communities, in communities that I'm sensitive to. And why am I sensitive to them? Because in many ways they are the heartbeat of the state. You know, I know that the focus is always on Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati, and it frustrates all of you. I don't think that ought to be our singular focus. Are those cities important? Of course they are. But what about your communities? What about Ashland? What about Cambridge? These are important places. And what we find is that over 600 CEOs say Ohio is the 44th place that they locate a job. If Jim Tressel was 44th, we would have canned him already. CNBC says we're 38th. The Tax Foundation says we're 48th. And we've lost 397,000 jobs. And as I said, 41 other states have done better than we have. Now, the problem that we have is that our taxes are too high, and we just raise taxes in the middle of a very tough time, and we're the 7th highest tax state in America. We've raised taxes again. Now that is a prescription for the small businesses that are located in your communities to either fold their tents or move. That's what's been happening. Taxes are too high. They shouldn't have been raised. I don't know how anybody gets away with saying they didn't raise taxes when they did. It was a big mistake. We need to reduce taxes, and we need to reduce the size of government. This guy has raided the rainy day fund. He's securitized tobacco that was supposed to provide a stream of revenue for 44 years and sold it all off for 4 years. We've used stimulus money to run the government, and we raise taxes. I wonder why we have a big hole, and I wonder why we're struggling. On the regulatory side, if you don't take your pad and pencil and just go talk to small business people and ask them how they feel about regulations in Ohio, you'll get an earful. Because between paperwork and contradictory directions from people inside the government, it's become very, very difficult in Ohio for small businesses to be successful. They, by the way, have endorsed me, the small business community, the NFIB. The Chamber of Commerce, which never endorsed anybody in 117 years, also endorsed me for governor, and Mary Taylor for lieutenant governor. On the regulatory side, we have a big stack of code. It needs to be rationalized. We need to protect health and safety, but it should not be inconsistent with economic growth and job creation. I believe that it is. So does a small business community. So does the Chamber of Commerce. Our workers' comp costs are through the roof, and they gyrate and skyrocket, and they are unpredictable. That system needs to be stabilized. It's argued that it's all okay. It is not okay. It is one of the things that people look at in terms of where they're going to keep their businesses, because if you're close to West Virginia, if you're close to Kentucky, if you're close to Indiana, you start thinking maybe I get a better deal somewhere else. You don't work, you don't figure workers' comp out on the back of an envelope, but it is important that we have a plan in place. We're going to work with the legislature on this. There's some people there with good ideas. Try to stabilize those rates. We want to job train people. They say they fixed it. 15% of small businesses use job training. 17% of big businesses use job training in a state where, if there's any state where we need to train people, it's in Ohio. So we have a program to simplify it, and we have a program to have vouchers so that businesses can easily access the program. We'll have one portal and we'll have one-stop shopping. I want to create a Jobs Ohio program. Now, it was just said the other day by the opposition that the Department of Development has moved too slow in getting things done. That's an understatement. We didn't even have a permanent director of the Department of Development for 7 months. That's like going to war and not having a general in charge. So what I want to do is phase that out, and I want to create a not-for-profit organization. Now, I just got announced today that 126 jobs from Scott's company is moving to Mississippi. Guess who lured them there? The Mississippi not-for-profit jobs operation in Mississippi.
What's their tax rate in Mississippi?
Don't know. Don't know what all those metrics are. But there are only 8 states performing worse than us in the last 4 years. I don't think Mississippi is in that, but I don't have the numbers. I'd have to get it back to you.
Mississippi has a tax. I don't know what it is. There's 9 that don't.
Yeah. So anyway, so we want to have a Jobs Ohio program so we can get people that are going to focus on what we're going to do in Alliance. What are we going to do in Cambridge? What are we going to do to leverage our assets and take advantage of the good things we have to create more jobs? And we should focus on keeping the businesses we have, on expanding the businesses we have, and then finally going and finding other people. And then we need to open up our universities. We need to start commercializing. We need to start putting our universities in a position of where they become entrepreneurs and job creators. It is not happening enough in this state. I've talked to I've talked to Gordon Gee about this. I had a long conversation in a meeting yesterday with the president of Wright State. They're trying, they got a long way to go. And we need to have cooperation among all of our universities to share expertise, research and development, commercialized products. These are the kind of things that if we get working on them, I believe that we can make Ohio great again. So we have a governor that understands job creation, a team of people that's been there and actually has a record of creating jobs. We streamline the regulatory system, improve workers' comp, begin a process of making the government more effective and more efficient, and reduce taxes. We'll be okay.
When you talk about it, I think even a governor, present governor, would acquiesce to the fact there's going to be a shortfall, and we all know that given the $8 billion investment by the federal government in our operating funds in this last budget. But he indicated that although he doesn't think it's a good idea to raise taxes now, he wouldn't rule that out, but he would like to concentrate on the efficiency and cost-cutting side. You've indicated you will not raise taxes. I think that came out yesterday. Mm-hmm. And so obviously that has, if you're going to balance that budget, which you're going to be required to do, or the legislative branch is going to be required to do, obviously that's going to have to come in efficiencies or cuts. How does that happen?
Well, look, I've written 13 budgets. I was a budget committee chairman at I spent 10 years of my life trying to balance a federal budget. In 1995, I became chairman of the budget committee, had built a team over those years, because everything requires teamwork. And we had a $3 trillion 10-year projected deficit. When I left in 2000, after laying down the Balanced Budget Act, which I was the chief architect of, we had a $5 trillion surplus. We cut taxes on risk-taking and investment, and we returned a lot of power to the states. It's like writing a book. I've written 3 of them. You don't release it chapter by chapter. The governor's budget person can't even tell you how far we're in the hole. So until I know the revenues, I can't give you some partial picture of what I'm going to do. I give you a couple examples, but I've done it before.
Give us a couple examples.
Well, we have 6 different agencies of the state government that handles Medicaid. We don't even know the real value of the assets the state of Ohio has. A lot of them are on deeds, buried away somewhere. We do not push shared services with our schools and our communities. Those are just a few of the examples of things that we need to fix. I told you already about Jobs Ohio. I don't think we need this Department of Development anymore. We need a transition to a not-for-profit organization. I also think we have to do a significant rationalization of the job training programs. So you know, you just have to go, you just don't lay it out there like, well, what about this or what about that until you have the full picture. But let me tell you why we can't raise taxes. There's a restaurant in Alliance